There are stories whispered across the ancient Americas, tales of people seized by invisible forces, of madness spreading like wildfire, of voices that spoke through unwilling mouths. But where modern minds might see mental illness or superstition, the ancients saw something else: possession. And in the face of these dark forces, they turned to powerful figures, those who walked between worlds, who wielded sacred tools, sang forbidden songs, and dared to confront the unseen. These were the Exorcists, the demon banishers, and spirit warriors of forgotten worlds. Today, we explore their rituals, their battles, and their legacy. This is Untold Secrets of Ancient America, and you're about to witness the fierce, mysterious world of ancient American exorcists and demon banishers. Across the ancient Americas, spiritual possession wasn't fiction or folklore. It was reality. Illness, madness, even bad luck were often interpreted as signs that a person, a home, or even a village had come under the influence of malevolent forces. Among the Maya, terrifying shapeshifters called Wyob were believed to attack through dreams or enter the body unseen. In the Andes, spirits called Supe haunted burial sites and sacred mountains, bringing nightmares and illness. In the northern plains, the Lakota told stories of Iya, a devouring force of chaos, and Unctehi, a serpentine spirit of destruction. But unlike today, these phenomena weren't dismissed. They were answered. Ancient peoples turned to specialists, exorcists, spiritual warriors, and healers to confront these beings directly. Possession was never just personal, it was a spiritual infection that could threaten entire communities. Some believed the spirits came through violations of taboo, contact with the dead, or inheritance of ancestral sins. Others thought they came from cursed places, haunted objects, or the sheer imbalance of natural forces. When the signs began, a person talking to invisible presences, sudden convulsions, unexplainable disease, it was time to act. That's when the exorcist was summoned, and the war for the soul began. To truly understand ancient American exorcists, we must understand the shaman, not a priest, not a doctor, but something more. Across the Americas, shamans were chosen, not trained. They often began with visions, fever dreams, or trauma, initiation through suffering. Some were struck by lightning and lived. Others fell into comas or wandered the wilderness for days. What returned was not the same person, but one altered by the spirit world. Shamans were seen as walking bridges between dimensions. They could diagnose afflictions others couldn't see, and they wielded tools few understood. But when it came to exorcism, their work took on an even more dangerous edge. The shaman had to enter the spiritual realm through trance, chanting, or entheogenic plants, and battle the possessing entity within it. Sometimes, this meant journeying into the underworld to retrieve a lost soul. Other times, it meant confronting a spirit who had taken up residence inside the body. This wasn't just mysticism, it was high-stakes, community-level crisis management. The possessed could harm others. Their spiritual sickness could attract more malevolent forces. The shaman's success or failure could determine the fate of an entire group. They used mirrors, talismans, masks, feathers, stones, and songs, every object infused with meaning. These were not props, they were weapons. Imagine a night lit by firelight. Smoke billows from a burning bundle of sage or copal. The air pulses with drumbeats. A rattle shakes rhythmically, mirroring a heartbeat. The shaman steps forward, cloaked in animal hide, face painted with protective patterns. In hand, is a feather fan, a bone whistle, or a carved staff. Each of these items carries centuries of symbolism and spiritual function. This is the battlefield. Among the Navajo, the Hatawi, ceremonial healers, used sand paintings as spiritual maps, guiding the soul back into alignment while disrupting the forces at play. In the Amazon, Shipibo Konibo shamans painted protective kene patterns on cloth, bodies, and even water, believing the designs repelled spirits. In Mesoamerica, obsidian mirrors were used to peer into other worlds or to confuse spirits that mirrored back their own gaze. Sound was a powerful tool. Certain frequencies were believed to disrupt spiritual forces. From Arctic throat singing to Andean pan flutes to Amazonian icaros, sound acted as both summoning call and weapon. These weren't random songs. Each had a specific purpose, one to lure, another to bind, another to expel. Drumming entrained brainwaves, guiding participants into trance, and rattles mimicked the sound of spirit movement. Combined, they created a sensory onslaught meant to dislodge and disorient entities, forcing them to release their grip. Where sound failed, the plants began their work. Many exorcists employed sacred botanicals, not for hallucination, but for warfare. Ayahuasca, for instance, was used across the Amazon, not just for insight, but as a tool of cleansing. The brew could induce purging, vomiting, sweating, shaking, as the possessing entity was believed to be expelled through the body's convulsions. The visual component of the journey was not random. It was interpreted and guided by the shaman to identify spiritual threats and guide the patient back to wholeness. Tobacco was not merely smoked. It was prayed into, blown over the body, or offered to spirits as a negotiation. Sage, cedar, and sweetgrass each had roles depending on the tribe, either to purify, repel, or welcome helpful spirits. Peyote, sacred to many Native American tribes, allowed the practitioner to see the affliction and speak directly with spirit guides. These rituals could last hours or days and were often communal, with others singing, drumming, and protecting the space. Importantly, these ceremonies were never entertainment. They were sacred and dangerous. The wrong plant, the wrong chant, or the wrong interpretation could invite something far worse. The spirits were cunning, it was said, and only the most seasoned shamans could navigate the complex spiritual terrain to bring the patient back. Not all exorcisms were about people. Sometimes the land itself was believed to be possessed. Sacred caves, cursed mountains, or desecrated burial sites could harbor malevolent entities. When disasters occurred, droughts, plagues, or crop failures, people sometimes blamed haunted landscapes. Exorcists were called to purify them, often through massive rituals involving the entire community. Dances, offerings, fire ceremonies, and even temporary abandonment of the site. Objects, too, could carry spiritual residue. A carved statue that caused illness, a flute that played itself, or a hunting tool passed down through generations might be seen as cursed. Some cultures believed the dead clung to their possessions, and disturbing them invited wrath. In such cases, the shaman's role was to either cleanse the object or destroy it. But sometimes, destruction wasn't enough. The object had to be sealed in a cave, thrown into sacred waters, or buried under layers of protective symbols. In rare cases, curses passed through bloodlines. A great-grandparent's crimes or violations of taboo might echo down generations. These generational spirits could cause madness, infertility, or visions. Exorcists performed bloodline rituals to sever the connection, often invoking ancestor spirits, reenacting original traumas, or symbolically rebirthing the afflicted into a new, purified identity. Colonization brought not only conquest, but the violent suppression of indigenous spirituality. Shamans were labeled witches, their tools were burned, sacred plants were banned, drums were silenced. Exorcists, who had protected their communities for generations, were forced underground. But they did not vanish. Today, in remote villages, on reservations, or hidden within the folds of rural tradition, these spiritual warriors endure. Some now blend Christian symbols with ancient rites. Others reclaim their heritage in secrecy. The stories of demons and possession still echo, but are now filtered through modern language, addiction, depression, trauma. Yet some say these are the same spirits, just wearing new names. By listening to these ancient traditions, we gain more than historical curiosity. We inherit a worldview where healing is holistic, where the soul matters, and where courage isn't just about swords and shields, but about facing the unseen. In the battle between fear and meaning, the exorcists of ancient America were the ones who dared to stand in the gap. When European colonizers arrived in the Americas, they didn't just bring swords, guns, and disease, they brought a different kind of exorcism. Backed by Catholic doctrine, Spanish and Portuguese missionaries viewed native rituals as demonic, their shamans as sorcerers, and their ceremonies as blasphemy. What indigenous cultures saw as healing, Europeans saw as heresy. As missions spread, native exorcists were persecuted. Many were accused of witchcraft and publicly executed. Sacred tools were confiscated, ceremonial sites were destroyed or buried beneath churches. Ancient chants and healing songs were banned, and sacred plants like tobacco and peyote were outlawed. But the exorcists did not disappear. They adapted. Some practiced in secret, hiding ceremonies inside Christian frameworks, masking ancient prayers in Latin, calling upon saints instead of spirits. Others fled into remote regions, preserving their knowledge orally across generations. In places like the Andes and central Mexico, native exorcists adopted syncretic forms of resistance. They blended indigenous cosmology with Christian iconography, using the image of archangels or saints to symbolize pre-colonial spirit warriors. In North America, the ghost dance movement was one such spiritual resurgence, an attempt to summon ancestral power to drive out the colonizers. These were not just acts of desperation. They were spiritual uprisings led by dreamers, healers, and visionaries who refused to surrender their soulcraft. Even today, echoes of these traditions survive in Native American church ceremonies, curanderismo practices in the Southwest, and Amazonian ayahuasca rituals. These modern exorcists carry ancient knowledge, once demonized, now remembered. What if the ancient exorcists were more than healers? What if they were keepers of forgotten science, guardians of mental, emotional, and spiritual truth, encoded in chants, feathers, plants, and memory? In a world still haunted by the unknown, perhaps their wisdom isn't a relic, but a roadmap. As we leave behind this hidden chapter, remember, sometimes the scariest demons aren't the ones in stories. They're the ones we refuse to see. Until next time, this is Untold Secrets of Ancient America, and you've been watching Ancient American Exorcists and Demon Banishers.